The firearms industry loves to push the latest polymer wonder weapons, claiming they are the ultimate solution for personal defense. They sell you on capacity, on featherweight specs, and on hype. But out here in the real world, on the asphalt and in the shadows where bad things actually happen, the best weapon for self-defense isn't always the one with the highest round count or the lightest footprint. Sometimes it's the heavy, ugly, undeniable piece of steel that refuses to fail when your life hangs in the balance. Today, we are tearing down the marketing myths. We are going to conduct a brutal, no-nonsense autopsy of the top compact pistols and revolvers that actually deserve a spot in your holster. I'm not here to read you a spec sheet. I'm here to tell you what happens when the adrenaline dumps, your fine motor skills evaporate, and you need a tool that speaks the universal language of force. This isn't a popularity contest. This is a survival guide. We are stripping away the fluff and focusing on 3 critical metrics for every firearm on this list. A ruthless, real-world verdict, a raw assessment of shootability, what it actually feels like to pull that trigger when your heart is hammering at 200 beats per minute, and a tactical street-level tip you can use tomorrow. If you are looking for validation for your safe queens, click away. If you are a responsible gun owner looking for hardware that fights as hard as you do, lock it in. Let's start with a platform that defies the modern obsession with weight reduction. Pore. We have the resurrection of a legend, the Colt King Cobra carry in .357 Magnum. Colt brought back the snake guns, and they didn't just play on nostalgia, they engineered a serious fighting implement. This is modern metallurgy meets classic American styling. The King Cobra carry is designed for the shooter who wants the stopping power of the .357 Magnum, but refuses to compromise on trigger quality. This is a specialized tool. It represents surgical precision in a chaotic environment. Unlike the gritty, stacking triggers of cheaper revolvers, the Colt features a leaf spring action that offers a glass-smooth pull straight from the factory. In a defensive shooting, where your first shot is statistically the most important shot of your life, having a trigger that doesn't fight you is a massive tactical advantage. This is a belt gun, through and through. It is for the connoisseur who understands that a defensive firearm is an investment in life insurance. It points naturally, almost like an extension of your index finger. But let's be clear, firing full-house .357 Magnum loads out of a 3-inch barrel is violent. It creates a massive concussion and a fireball that will blind you in low light. The action is superb, perhaps the best in its class. However, physics still applies. With defensive loads, muzzle flip is aggressive. If you are not using a crushing, high-tang grip, the gun will torque in your hand. The sights are excellent for a snub-nose, allowing for quick acquisition, but you need to do your part. Train with 38 Special plus P loads to build your cadence and accuracy, but carry the Magnum loads for the street. Use a stiff, dedicated gun belt. This heavy cylinder will sag a cheap department store belt, causing the grip to print through your shirt. And for the love of ballistic science, swap out the factory grips if they don't fit your hand perfectly. Purchase on the gun is everything when riding the lightning of a .357. Now, we pivot to the weapon that single-handedly disrupted the industry and forced every other manufacturer to play catch-up. The Sig P365 in 9mm. Before this gun dropped, we lived in a world of compromise. You either carried a single stack with 6 rounds or a brick-sized double stack. Sig Sauer shattered that paradigm. They engineered a tapered, stack-and-a-half magazine that allows you to carry 10, 12, or even 15 rounds of 9mm in a package smaller than many revolvers. This is the gold standard for the modern concealed carrier who refuses to rely on just 5 shots. This is the pragmatist's choice. It is the weapon for the Second Amendment. Sentinel who understands that in a multiple attacker scenario, capacity is king. The P365 proved that you don't have to dress around your gun anymore. It disappears under a t-shirt, yet it fights like a service pistol. Despite its micro footprint, it doesn't feel like a toy. The bore axis is low, which helps mitigate muzzle flip, and the grip texture is aggressive enough to lock into your skin without being abrasive. The trigger is crisp with a tactile reset, allowing for rapid follow-up shots that are miles ahead of the double-action revolver triggers we just discussed. Because this gun is so small, your support hand can easily slide forward in front of the muzzle if you have large hands. Train your grip relentlessly to ensure your thumbs stay clear of the slide and the muzzle. Also, buy the 12-round extended magazines. They give you just enough extra real estate for your pinky finger, which drastically improves your control during rapid fire. You might think putting polymer in a revolver is heresy. You might think it is an insult to the steel and wood, heritage of American gunmaking. But if you ignore innovation because of tradition, you are going to get left behind. That brings us to the gun that forced the revolver world to evolve, the Ruger LCR in .38 Special. Ruger solved a physics problem that has plagued shooters for a century. How do you make a featherweight revolver that doesn't feel like a hand grenade going off in your palm? The answer was radical. They married a monolithic aerospace-grade aluminum cylinder frame to a polymer fire control housing. This isn't just about weight reduction, it is about recoil management. That polymer housing actually flexes slightly upon ignition, absorbing a fraction of the recoil impulse that would normally travel straight up your arm and into your shoulder. It turns a sharp, painful crack into a duller, more manageable thump. This is the tool for the concealed carry practitioner who demands simplicity but hates the punishment of airweight alloys. It is ugly. It looks like a prop from a sci-fi movie. But it works. It is designed to be carried often and fired without flinching. Unlike traditional revolvers that can rust if you look at them wrong, the LCR is impervious to the sweat and humidity of deep concealment. This is where the LCR shines. The friction-reducing cam system in the trigger group is an engineering marvel. Instead of the heavy stacking pull you find on a J-frame, the LCR offers a smooth, non-stacking trigger pull that remains consistent from start to break. This means you can keep your sights aligned on the target much easier during that critical double-action pull. Because the trigger return spring is aggressive, you have to let the trigger reset all the way forward. If you are used to riding the reset on a Glock or a 1911, you will short-stroke this revolver, causing the cylinder to skip a beat. Train to slap that trigger fully forward and back, and strictly for carry, stick to the enclosed hammer version to eliminate any risk of snagging on the draw. We have arrived at the summit. We have looked at pocket rockets, alloy air weights, and high-capacity micros. But the top two spots are reserved for the platforms that represent the absolute pinnacle of their respective classes. We have the gun that proved stainless steel was the future of firearms, the Smith & Wesson Model 60. This is the definition of old-school cool, but do not mistake vintage for obsolete. The Model 60 is essentially the legendary Chief's Special, but forged in stainless steel. This material change did two things. It made the gun almost impervious to the corrosion of daily carry, and it added critical weight. This is the expert's choice for a do-it-all revolver. It is heavier than the J-frames we discussed earlier, and that is its superpower. In a defensive encounter, adrenaline dumps will destroy your fine motor skills. The heft of the Model 60 stabilizes your hand. It hangs on the target. It feels like a real weapon, not a crackerjack prize. It is built to digest a steady diet of 357 Magnum loads that would rattle a lesser gun to pieces. It is forgiving. While shooting a Magnum load out of a snub-nose is never pleasant, the Model 60 makes it controllable. The steel frame soaks up the violence of the explosion. If you load it with .38 Special plus P, it becomes a surgical instrument. The single-action trigger is crisp, predictable, and allows for precision work at 15 yards or beyond, distances where smaller guns fail. Because this is a steel gun, you need to maintain the forcing cone. That is the funnel at the back of the barrel where the bullet enters from the cylinder. Lead and carbon buildup here can destroy accuracy. Keep it clean. And because this gun is heavy, do not use a cheap clip-on holster. Use a holster with widespread loops to distribute the weight on your belt, or you will find yourself constantly pulling up your pants in public. We have the Ruger SP101 chambered in the often overlooked .327 Federal Magnum. This is not a toy. The SP101 is a tank. While the industry races to the bottom to shave ounces, Ruger built a snub-nose revolver that feels like it was forged from a bank vault. This heavy stainless steel frame is the secret weapon. In a high-stress engagement, physics is the only law that matters. Mass absorbs energy. That extra weight at the muzzle means when you crack off a round, the gun doesn't try to jump out of your hand. It stays planted. It absorbs the recoil impulse that usually makes lightweight snub-nosed revolvers a nightmare to shoot accurately. But the real story here is the caliber. The .327 Federal Magnum is a ballistic screamer. It gives you performance nipping at the heels of the .357 Magnum, but with less punishing recoil and, crucially, it allows for a 6-round cylinder in a frame size that typically only holds 5. That one extra round is a 20% increase in fighting capacity. This is the thinking man's workhorse. It is for the Second Amendment supporter who values absolute mechanical reliability over comfort. It is heavy, yes, but that weight is reassurance. It tells you that if you run out of ammo, you can still use it as a blunt impact tool. The trigger on the SP101 is legendary, but not always for the best reasons. Out of the box, it is a long, heavy, double-action pull. It requires deliberate practice. You cannot slap this trigger. You have to roll through it. However, once you master that staging, the break is consistent. The recoil of the 327 is snappy, but thanks to that steel frame and the grip geometry, it is not abusive. Do not fool yourself into thinking this is a pocket gun. It is too heavy, and the rubber grip will snag on your lining, getting you killed in a draw stroke. This weapon demands a sturdy belt and a quality kydex or leather holster, preferably carried in the appendix position to manage the weight. And since reloading a revolver under fire is a fine motor skill nightmare, buy some dummy rounds and practice your reloads until your fingers bleed. We are deep in the trenches now, moving from the heavyweights to the firearms that redefine the rules of engagement. A duo that has arguably ridden in more pockets, ankle holsters, and detective coats than any other firearm in American history. The Smith & Wesson J-frames, specifically the Model 642 and 442. Let's be brutally honest about these aluminum alloy-framed snubs. They are the definition of a love-hate relationship. Chambered in .38 Special Plus P, these are the quintessential get-off-me guns. They are not designed for comfort. They are designed for intimate, bad-breath distance violence. The enclosed hammer design of the Centennial series means there is absolutely nothing to snag on your clothing when you draw from a pocket or a purse. In a life-or-death struggle, where you might be firing from inside a jacket pocket, this internal hammer is the difference between a bang and a malfunction. This is the professional's backup. It won't win you a marksmanship trophy at 25 yards, but it will function when covered in lint, dirt, and sweat. However, do not let the small size fool you into thinking this is a beginner's gun. That is a dangerous myth. The lightweight frame transfers every ounce of recoil energy directly into the web of your hand. It is vicious. Mastering a 12-pound double-action trigger on a 12-ounce gun requires a level of dedication that most casual shooters simply do not possess. It is difficult. I won't sugarcoat it. The sight radius is practically non-existent. Aiming this weapon is less about finding a crisp sight picture and more about indexing the frame naturally. At typical self-defense distances of 3 to 7 yards, you are looking at point shooting mechanics. The trigger reset is long, and if you short stroke it under stress, the cylinder won't rotate and the gun won't fire. If you carry a J-frame, invest in a dedicated pocket holster like a Mika or a DeSantis Nemesis. Never, ever carry this loose in a pocket with keys or coins. That is a recipe for a negligent discharge. And for ammunition, stick to a proven load like the Speer Gold Dot short barrel formula, specifically engineered to expand at lower velocities. This is the Smith & Wesson Model 686 Plus. This is the L-frame beast. If the J-frame is a backup piece, the 686 Plus is a primary offensive tool. The Plus designation is critical here. It means you have 7 rounds of 357 Magnum or .38 Special on tap, bridging the capacity gap between revolvers and pistols. This is for the shooter who refuses to compromise on power or accuracy. It is heavy, bold, and unapologetic. The full underlug barrel puts weight right where you need it, out front, to crush recoil. This isn't a gun you hide in a pocket. This is a gun you carry on a sturdy belt when you expect trouble. It sits at the intersection of extreme durability and match-grade accuracy. It is a dream. Firing .38 Special loads through a steel L-frame feels like shooting a rimfire .22. There is almost zero recoil. Even with full-power Magnum loads, the mass of the gun tames the snap into a manageable push. The single-action trigger brake is glass rod crisp, allowing for precision shots at distances that would embarrass a compact polymer pistol. Do not rely on loose rounds for reloading. With a 7-shot cylinder, speed loaders can be finicky depending on the grip size. Invest in Speed Bs or HKS speed loaders and practice the transition. Better yet, use moon clips if your cylinder is cut for them. This allows you to drop all 7 rounds in at once and extract the empties as a single unit, which is a massive advantage when your hands are shaking with adrenaline. But here is the question that keeps gun owners up at night. Can a polymer revolver actually compete with these steel legends? Or is it just plastic junk destined to fail? The answer coming up next might completely change your carry rotation. Now, we are stripping it down to the bare minimum. We are entering the realm of the pocket rocket, but with a twist. The Ruger LCP Max in 380 ACP. For years, the mouse gun category was a joke. You had pistols that held 6 rounds of underpowered ammo, had sights that were barely bumps on the slide, and were miserable to shoot. The LCP Max changed the calculus. Ruger took the chassis of their best-selling pocket pistol and widened the grip just enough to fit a double-stack magazine, giving you 10 or even 12 rounds of ammo in a package that still disappears into a front pocket. This is the ultimate no-excuses gun. It is for the person who says, "I can't carry a gun today because I'm wearing gym shorts," or "I'm in a suit." The LCP Max calls your bluff. If you can carry a smartphone, you can carry this weapon. It provides a level of firepower that used to require a holster and a belt, now available in a form factor that fits in the palm of your hand. Let's be real, physics is still physics. A tiny gun firing 380 ACP is going to be snappy. However, the slightly wider grip of the Max model spreads that recoil energy over a larger surface area of your hand compared to the original single-stack LCP. But the biggest upgrade? The sights. Real dovetail sights with a tritium front post. You can actually acquire a sight picture and aim this thing rather than just pointing and praying. The 380 ACP cartridge is marginal. It lacks the barrier penetration of the 9mm. Therefore, shot placement is non-negotiable. Do not rely on stopping power. Rely on volume and accuracy. Furthermore, pocket lint is the enemy of micro-compact semi-autos. If you carry this in a pocket, you must blow it out with compressed air weekly. A ball of lint in the slide rails will turn your semi-automatic defender into a single-shot paperweight. We have covered the innovators and the pocket dwellers, but there is a storm coming. We are heading toward the top of the mountain, where we have to choose between a battle-hardened steel veteran that refuses to die and the modern polymer king that has taken the crown of the concealed carry market. The final countdown is about to begin. Which philosophy wins? Old-school steel or high-capacity polymer? The gun that arguably sits in the Goldilocks zone of concealed carry, the Glock 43 XMOS in 9mm. This pistol solved the biggest complaint people had with subcompacts, the grip. The 43X takes the slim, concealable slide of a single stack, but pairs it with a slightly longer grip frame. This means you can get a full 3-finger purchase on the weapon. That extra real estate for your pinky finger changes everything. It gives you leverage. Leverage means recoil control. Recoil control means you stay in the fight. But the MOS designation is the real game changer here. It stands for Modular Optic System. This gun comes ready to accept a micro red dot sight right out of the box. This is the modern standard. It bridges the gap between a carry gun and a fighting gun. It is slim enough to disappear inside your waistband, but shootable enough to take a hostage rescue shot if you had to. It is the weapon for the responsible gun owner who embraces technology to gain a tactical advantage. With a red dot equipped, this gun feels like cheating. You don't have to align front and rear iron sights under stress. You just put the dot on the threat and press the trigger. The 9mm recoil is snappy due to the light slide, but that full grip allows you to clamp down and drive the gun back on target instantly. If you run a red dot, you must treat the glass with Rain-X or a similar anti-fog coating. In the real world, temperature changes or body sweat can fog up your emitter, leaving you blind. And always, always utilize backup iron sights that can be seen through the optic window. Electronics fail, batteries die. Iron is eternal. Harita. So, what is the lesson here? We have looked at the Ruger LCR for simplicity, the LCP Max for deep concealment, and the Glock 43X for combat effectiveness. But here is the hard truth that no marketing brochure will tell you. The best gun is the one you actually have on your body when the wolf comes to the door. A 4-inch combat magnum left in the safe is useless compared to a 380 in your pocket. Don't buy a gun just to post a picture of it on social media. Buy it. Buy a quality holster, and then spend more money on ammo than you did on the weapon. Train your draw until it is boring. Train your reloads until your hands move without thinking. Because when the time comes, you won't rise to the occasion. You will sink to the level of your training. Stay vigilant.